How to shorten an RC coil spring, or any coil spring for that matter. Why have I had to go and shorten this spring? Well, I wanted to lower the ride height of my Brushless Arrma Granite 4x4 in order with that slightly nose down attitude is not so willing to lift up as the speeds increase. So keep watching to see exactly how to shorten an RC coil spring. Fairly easy using the following method. Well, these coil springs are from my RC car in particular, the Arrma Granite 4x4 here. First of all, I've got my little torch in here which runs off of butane, which you can get from one of those things that you fill your cigarette lighter with. And I've got my Dremel here, which I'm going to use in order to cut the springs to the same size. Whoa! This is definitely a whoa moment, because what I have found in testing on a first spring coil that I was heating up in order to, because you need to heat you're going to need to heat the top coils of the spring up in order to squeeze them together with pliers to make the top of the spring flat. Now I was using this benzomatic torch, which has proved to be absolutely useless. In actual fact, it's going in the bin straight after this video. So I've had to nip out to Ace Hardware to buy this propane fuel cylinder kit, which has got a very strong blowtorch on the top, which is going to give me plenty of heat because I want that coil on the spring absolutely red hot so that they're nice and malleable. So I'm going to then squeeze the coils together to make it flat again on the top of the spring. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, we'll do in this demo. And where the skill comes in is because if you just cut the spring just like midway through this point in here, I'm sure I can cut both the springs to an even point, which is what I'm aiming to do. However, look at the top of that spring and the way it's folded out, so as you spiral it around, turn it round, it remains flat on the top in there. That's because when you're seating it back into one of the shock absorbers, you know, the top of that is flat. So if your spring is still curly, the thing is not going to seat itself properly on there, and it's going to bounce loose and your car's going to go all over the place. Now, first things first, you need to decide exactly how much you need to lop off your spring. You're only going to get the kind of one chance to do it, although springs are fairly cheap to buy. So if you muck this up, it's not too big an expense. It's not like you can't throw the shock absorber itself or something like that. Okay, so what I want you to do is put the two of them, preferably against a flat surface, which is what I'm going to do in a minute, and then mark out, ideally with a white marker, a little mark on the springs so they're exactly, you cut them exactly at the same point, so that you've not got one that's going to be sitting slightly lower than the other when you've finished this job. However, say I'm going to mark the coils out. It's getting late on at night and I'm the kind of just do it guy. Let's get this done. You could use, what I would recommend is a little blob of Tip-X, like the white correction fluid, on each of the springs at exactly the same height. So your cutting point is the same on each of the springs. By putting them against this flat surface here, which is the butane box, by the way, guys, you're giving yourself a fighting chance. Don't put them on something that's at an angle. You want a perfectly level surface on there. So you're going to cut through each spring pretty much at exactly the same point. So when you finish shortening them, they're going to be the same length as each other. Now, as I say, I'm the kind of just get it done kind of guy. So I'm going to cut through the second coil down on each one, approximately halfway through, using my Dremel. Now, do as I say, not as I do, because I want to cut through, I want it to be at the height of the second coil down there. Therefore, I need to be cutting through at the first coil, because what I've got in mind is that when I flatten this down, it's going to be squeezed down to the level of the second coil. So whatever you do, you want to be cutting through a coil above the height that you're wanting to actually move down to. I hope that makes sense on there. So if you're wanting to cut, if you're wanting to be at the height of the, say, the fourth coil down, cut through the third coil down, because when you squeeze the thing flat, as I'm going to do, then that will come down to the height of the fourth coil. Hope that makes sense. Any questions? As ever, please ask away. Okay guys, well the first thing I've done in shortening the spring is use my Dremel with its circular cutting disc on here to reduce the height of both of the springs down by those two coils on there. Now, I tried the first spring off camera, because what you're going to need to do is use this butane torch to apply heat to it. This little torch did not provide enough heat to it, kept going out all the time, driving me crazy, lots of child unfriendly language. The first one came out okay, but not absolutely ideal, predominantly because I just couldn't get enough heat in there. So for the second one, I've gone out and bought this butane torch kit from Ace Hardware. So my next job is going to be to unbox this butane torch and I'm going to apply heat to the top of this spring and then squeeze it down flat with the pliers when the thing is glowing red hot, or at least that's the plan. Anyway, let me unbox the torch and get some heat on the thing. Okay, now I've got my nice new blowtorch going. I'm going to warm this top coil up until it's glowing red hot. This is giving out considerably more heat than the first one that I tried. This should definitely do the job. Let's get that next coil down going as well. Plenty of heat in there. Nice and glowing red hot. Keeping that, this is looking from the side, as flat as possible. Now we're looking at it, that one wasn't perfectly straight on that, so I'm going to put a little bit more heat on and try and twist the coil over a little bit, which it should do without too much of a problem. And it tends to stay in the place you leave it when it's this hot. So I'm going to retreat the first one that I did, taking the second one out of there very carefully. If you look on the side of there, you will see now my coil is shortened and it's perfectly flat at the top, which means it's going to sit back in my damper without any problem at all. Now, I'm just going to reheat the first one that I did, see if I can get that in a bit better shape. Do need to take a great deal of care when doing this. Obviously any kids out there doing it, for goodness sake, do this with adult supervision, goes without saying, because this is red hot, boys and girls. Just trying to get that nice and level from the side, because I want that spring coil to be as flat as possible. Still going to need a little bit of tweaking. Things I do for the love of RC, guys. Okay, turn the torch off as soon as you're done. Bear in mind the top of that's still going to be quite warm, guys, so put it somewhere nice and carefully away from any plastic or anything that's going to fall near it. Now, one thing you can do, of course, is put these in some water to cool them on down. Well, on my first spring, I managed to retweak that with the extra added heat that the new propane torch gave, and shorten that spring quite nicely as well. So that, guys, is how to shorten an RC coil spring, or any car coil spring for that matter. So what tools have I used on this today? Well, I've used the vise down here for putting it in, which is going to keep things nice and safe from the heat that you're applying onto it, which is going to be quite considerable. As well, it glows red hot at the top. The bottom of the coil is still red. It's very, very warm, the bit that's still held in the vise. A couple of pairs of pliers, one for lifting it out of the vise, and one for squeezing it out on the top. I found two pairs of pliers, just a little bit easier than one when it came to handling the coil springs. Make sure they've had plenty of time to cool down, and they're now ready to install back in my Arrma Granite 4x4. Well, I hope you found that video on how to shorten an RC coil spring useful. You could apply that to any spring, any coil spring actually. And if you're not already a subscriber, then do consider subscribing, because this coil spring has been shortened to fit in this Brushless Arrma Granite 4x4 running Castle 15700 kV motor. It's got the tyres fitted, which have got the anti-ballooning mod on there. So I should be running this later on this week on 4S, and if that goes well, I'm going to try it on 6S, boys and girls. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that one. We hope you liked this video. If you did, please click on the circle image to subscribe. And if you hit subscribe, then don't forget to hit that little notifications bell next to it.